I'll see you guys in the dark.
This happened a couple years ago, and it's about the only really creepy encounter I've had in my life. Hope this is the right place for a story like this. I am a single mother and live in a fairly large city in the Midwest. Just me and my toddler. It was winter when this happened, and there was a pretty fierce snowstorm blowing outside. I am a smoker, so I still have to go outside and deal with the wind pelting my face with snow as I feed my final craving of the night before heading to bed. My porch is covered and has trees in the front, so it is really hard to see in at night, and I never turn my porch light on when I go out to smoke. It was late, 11, maybe 12, and the street was deserted. Although I live in a big city, my neighborhood is really quiet at night, and my street dead ends at a park, so there isn't much traffic. As soon as I stepped outside, I could hear something in the distance. I spark up my cig anyways, and looked down the street to where the noise was coming from. It sounded sort of like an animal growling. As the noise got closer, but was still about a block away, I could see a man walking. He was all in black, hood up, and I couldn't make anything out beyond this. He was speaking in a deep, guttural growl. It was the most demonic thing I have ever heard. It honestly did not sound human, but I know crazy can make many people insane. It's hard for me to describe just how fear-invoking this voice was. But I also have a curious nature, so I stood frozen in the storm, like a deer in the headlights, watching and listening. I can't really remember most of what he said, but I do remember the phrase,
"This is the Book of the Dead."
He was walking on the opposite side of the road as my house, and had made it about a half a block away. I hadn't moved from directly in front of my door, holding my phone with a death grip in my pocket, and I am smoking my cigarette as quickly as possible to get back inside. He was approaching the intersection right before my dead-end street, and I figured he would turn. I hoped he would turn, but he didn't. He kept walking towards the dead end, still speaking in this deranged voice, incoherently, something about this Book of the Dead. At this point, there's a million things racing through my mind. He can't see me. He's just some random crazy guy. Even though he was just about right across from my house, I still couldn't make out any details of his face, or really see anything beyond the black hood. Suddenly he stops talking, stops walking, and his hood slowly turns in my direction. I drop my cigarette, rush into my house, and lock the door, looking out the windows to see what he does. He just stood there for probably about 30 seconds, and then started walking again. He crossed the street and stopped again directly in front of the sidewalk from my door to the street. He stood facing my house for 3 to 4 minutes. I stood behind my locked door, staring at him as he stared back at me. Although he was only about 20 feet from me, his hood still concealed his face. I was debating internally if I should call the cops. The phone still clutched in my hand, but he honestly wasn't breaking the law in any way. He was just standing on the sidewalk, looking at my house. The standoff felt like it lasted an hour, with my heart leaping out of my chest. He was silent as he stood, and the only thing I could hear was the wind and pelts of snow tapping my windows. He turned and started walking again, speaking again in his growl. He kept on walking down the dead end and into the park. I could faintly hear his demonic voice through the door as he walked, and that was it. He was gone. I checked on my son, and he was sleeping soundly, although I can't say I did the same that night. It all started about a month ago. It was the 30 days of fasting, and we were on day 20. My friends and I always got dragged somewhere with our parents, kind of at a mosque, which was like a Muslim equivalent of a church, where all of the adults hang out upstairs after breaking their fast, and little kids mess around in the basement. My friends and I were pretty bored, because we didn't have much to do at that point. But then one of my friends suggested that we should go check out this abandoned kindergarten. At first, I was pretty hesitant about the idea, since if we got caught, our parents wouldn't live it down. Nonetheless, I decided to go. The downside was that it was pouring rain, and the streets were slammed with cars. We went to Sean's house, which was right near the mosque, to get his backpack full of flashlights and get some food. Our friends decided to wuss out, and in the end, it was just Sean and me. It took 10 minutes of walking in the pouring rain, but we got to the kindergarten. The outer parts of it were creepy. There was a lot of trash surrounding it, and the doors seemed openable. Sean went up the stairs to get to the front entrance. The entrance has stairs on both sides, so I went to the left and checked out the windows. I shined my flashlight through there and started to look through it. The first thing I noticed, there were all sorts of stuffed animals. They were arranged in a weird pattern, almost spelling out a V. The window was locked tight, so I got down, and Sean gave me a sign that the front door was locked. We eventually resorted to checking out the entrance under the stairs, and noticed that it wasn't locked. The locks on it were broken off, and we found a knife on the ground. It didn't look like a kitchen knife or a switchblade, but more so like a butter knife. I had a really weird feeling in my stomach about this, and I suggested that we head back. Sean agreed, so we both put the flashlights back in the bag, and were about to start walking back when we heard a noise. It sounded like heavy footsteps walking down, so we both decided to hide in the corner between the stairs and the railing on them. We dropped the bag and immediately stayed silent. The guy was wearing a dark gray hoodie with the hood up. The glints of his face showed that he had a small beard and long hair slicked back. He seemed skinny, but he was wearing baggy clothing. His sweatpants seemed slightly too big, and he also kept his hands in his pocket. Sean and I were very uneasy, but we stayed dead silent. The guy paced himself around where we were, but eventually saw our bag on the ground. We were approximately 10 feet apart, but he didn't know we were there. Immediately, Sean signaled with his finger to the left, where he could run and be back to the mosque in about 5 minutes. We both knew the way there, but we were pretty damn scared. The guy eventually took the bag and was about to head inside the kindergarten, so we got ready to run. We heard the door close, and we waited about a minute before moving. We slowly went down the stairs, and were about to cross the street when we heard someone say in a loud voice, "The rain feels pretty good, huh?" We looked back and saw the guy with the knife held at his side. This time his hood was up, so you could see only the smirk on his face. He was still at the door of the front entrance, so we booked it. And dear God Almighty, I'm thankful to my track coach. The guy still had the book bag, but we were just lucky to get away. We didn't see the guy anywhere, and eventually made it back. We dried off with towels in the mosque's bathroom, and took our jackets off. Sean said he didn't mind losing the bag or flashlight since they were old ones that he had lying around. The only downside is, it was his school book bag. It still might have his name and address on there. So creepy bearded man that held the knife, let's not meet. One day when I was about 14 years old, I was home alone during the summer watching my 2 younger sisters while my parents were at work. Now usually this is a normal thing for me. It was all routine. My parents would leave money, just enough for pizza if we were hungry, and would come back from work around 5 or 6. This particular day didn't sit well with me because for one, I was feeling really sick, and 2, I absolutely hate the rain. The rain was terrible this day, and this was still a time where my sisters were still scared of thunder and lightning. It was real gloomy outside, and I'd like to think the creepy part of my day started around noon from what I remember. I was in my dad's room when I hear a loud knock on the front door. Now we have a TV in the room over where my sister was watching her favorite show at the time. Now something didn't feel right other than me being so sick and not being able to keep anything down. I quickly popped up off the couch and peeked outside through the window in my dad's room, which looked straight onto the driveway. I looked, and I see this green truck parked in my driveway, and I quickly thought nobody in my family has a green truck, and why would someone be visiting in this horrible weather so quickly and quietly? I make my way to my sister's room, and I tell her to help me make sure all the windows are locked in the house. Now she's pretty freaked out because she has no idea what's going on. After locking all the windows of our house, I told her to grab my youngest sister and wait in the bathroom and lock the door and do not come out until she heard my voice telling her to do so. I had looked out the peephole, and I see two men standing at the front door, what looks like are trying to pick the lock or whatever. I didn't know what they were doing. I was just freaking out. I walked quietly to the house phone and called my mother and told her my situation. She had told me to call the police and that this should have been my first move, that she'd be on her way and would be calling my father soon. As soon as I hung up, I called the police and told them my situation. They told me that help would be on the way. By this time, I hear a slam like a door of a car being shut. I look outside, and I see the two men had vanished. I guess unsuccessful in their attempt to break into my house. They just pissed off. The police showed up about the same time my parents did a few short moments later, and I told them what happened. The police told me next time call them first in a situation like this one, and to thank God nobody got hurt. Honestly, I was only worried about my sisters, because if the two men did get in, I would have not been able to take on both of them. After that day, we went on like normal, except we went to Grandma's from there on. I never saw those two men again, and I hope we never meet again. When I was about 23, my girlfriend and I were living in an apartment building in Phoenix. Our downstairs neighbor clearly had some mental issues going on. He was probably in his 60s, super skinny, always wore really tight tank tops and short shorts around. This is not the mental issues part. The apartments were built in the 70s. Obviously, they had been renovated since then. Instead of the horizontal blinds, they had the vertical shitty ones now. No more carpet, updated appliances. You know what renovations are. But his apartment hadn't been. It was exactly the same. Only his in the whole complex. I only know this because he usually had his blinds open, and I had to walk by his place to get to the stairs. He would always yell and bang things around in his apartment. And when it rained, he would go up on the roof and just scream. I mean yell at the sky. And when he wasn't yelling at the sky, he was yelling, "Dang it!" in his apartment over and over again. And he would come outside and pace around mumbling to himself when it was raining. Now the creepy part. I was into photography at the time, and it was raining and lightning, so my girlfriend, my best friend Chris, and his girlfriend went to the roof to try and get shots of the lightning. Of course, Wild Man was on the 4th floor on his way to the open area of the roof. He asked us what we were doing. This was the first interaction I've had with this guy, even though I saw him all the time. I told him we were trying to take pictures of the lightning. "Why would you want to do that? That's stupid," he yells. So we just said, "Okay, dude," and went on our way. He followed us over to the roof. So we said, "Screw it, we're leaving." We walked over to the elevator, and he followed us again. We got in the elevator, and he just stood outside of it looking at us. I put my girlfriend behind me, and Chris did the same. I didn't know what this guy was about to do. He just stood there. The doors closed, and we all kind of chuckled and sighed out of relief. Then, like a horror movie, the doors opened up again, and Wild Man was standing there. He told us to go away, and I told him, "That's what we're trying to do." The doors closed again, and the elevator went down. We all went back to my apartment, and were considerably freaked out. So, Wild Man, I'm sorry for whatever happened to you during the rain, but let's not ever talk again. Okay, so this happened maybe 2 years ago now, and it happened to my entire family. I was 20 at the time, and my sister was 17. So one night we were all asleep, and my sister was on some serious medication because she had trouble sleeping, because she had night terrors or something like that. It was storming out, and it doesn't usually here, so I was up with all the noises and thunder pacing my room. My home is 2 stories, and my sister got the only room on the first floor because she wanted the bigger room with the French doors that led up to the back. Anyways, so it's storming, and the wind is really strong, so I'm already on edge. All of a sudden, there is a big thump from downstairs, like someone threw open the back doors, and the house alarm starts screaming. So my first reaction is to, of course, jump in my bed, and right as I do, I hear my dad jump out of bed, grab the pistol. He and my mom kept under the mattress. Heard my mother ask what's wrong, and hear him throw open his door. Let me explain the layout really quick. When you come up the staircase of my house, there's the bathroom right across from there, and the small hallway goes in sort of an L from there. At the beginning of the L is the bathroom. The corner is my brother's room, then my room, and at the top of the L is my parents' room. He started in my room, in his t-shirt and boxers. He military raid style kicks in my door, clears the room, tosses me the extra 9mm he keeps in his closet, and says to follow him. So he kicks open my brother's room and the bathroom and clears those rooms. Takes the stairs at least 3 at a time down to the first floor and whistles so I know I can come down. At this point now, everything my dad prepared us for safety-wise is kicking in with adrenaline. And it's hilarious to think about this part because I'm in an oversized t-shirt and panties. My dad's in his t-shirt and boxers with socks on, and the clearing of the house all happened within 2.5 minutes, I'd say. So he kicks open my sister's room where we see the back doors of her room are wide open and rain is pouring in. She very groggily sits up and asks us if her soup is ready. My dad stays with her, and I clear the kitchen and the living room and disarm the alarm when I hear my dad shouting, his pistol fire, in a voice that is very much not his, say, "Crap!" And then you see a tall flash of dark run across the backyard and throw itself over the back fence. I immediately call the police, and they're there within minutes. Apparently I left the room to clear the living room, and my dad walks from the front door to the foot of my sister's bed, and at that point my dad saw the man lying flat on the floor of my sister's room, trying not to be seen by us. He left behind a big knife and a rolled-up string of rope. They never found the guy who broke in, and we reinforced the back doors and changed the locks since they were from the original owner when we moved in. It was very scary, but now we look back and we laugh because my sister was out of it. The guy ran off, and my dad had run after him across the yard. And by the time I got to my sister's room to check on her, she just looked at me, obviously still not awake, said everything's fine, and tried to go back to sleep. This happened when I was 11. I have an older brother who was 16 at the time, and 2 younger brothers. My parents would often go out for dinner on a Friday and leave us at home with some hired videos, pizza, and my brother in charge. My brother would often leave to his friend's place down the road on the same street, and then leave me in charge. I liked this because I liked being in charge and got to choose the movies. This Friday night, it was stormy and raining on and off. There was some lightning and thunder around. I was watching a movie, and my 2 brothers were playing in the carport. It was a large open-plan space you can fit 4 cars under, and because Mom and Dad were out, you could skateboard, ride a bike, and do all sorts of things in it. Standing on our carport to the left was a park. We had no neighbors on this side, so you'd often see people using the footpath walking their dogs, riding, running into the night as there was some half-decent street lamps dotted along it. If you went out our driveway, you could go straight into the park. It was a great place to grow up. This night, my brother was down the road as usual, and had written his friend's number down and left us to it. It was probably into our second movie for the night, when my 2 younger brothers ran in and said a man is watching them from the park near our fence. Now normally, I'd like to think they were playing a joke, but their faces had that different, concerned look. So I thought I'd better come and take a look. We head back out to the carport, standing in the driveway, looking out towards the park. There's no sign of him. There's a lightning flash, and it lights up enough just outside of the carport that we see the man my brother saw is now standing in our yard watching us. We all screamed, slammed the door, and ran to Mom and Dad's room, locked the door, grabbed their phone, and ran a cord from the phone into the bathroom and locked the door. We called my brother's friend's house. His friend answered, and I told him there's a man in our yard. He yells out to my brother, and then says we are coming up. The wait was probably not even 5 minutes till they arrived, but it felt like ages. When they left, my brother told his friend's parents, and they called the police, and came up as well. We came back out of the house when they arrived, calling out to us. When they arrived, they said the man was gone. Soon after, the police arrived, and then another vehicle that went up through the park. It was sort of a scary night, but the police searched our house for us, and the yard, and the streets, and the park, and it seemed pretty reassuring at the time. And to me, my big brother was fearless, and always looked out for us, so having him back home was just as reassuring as the police being there. My parents arrived home not long after, with 2 police cars at our house, and the neighbors in the driveway, and my brother's friend's parents there as well. This was not during the time of mobile phones, so I'm thinking that they were wondering what had happened as they came into our driveway. Probably had their hearts racing. I don't recall hearing the man has ever been caught. Years later, when I moved out and my younger brothers took over my room, my dad told me one night my younger brother woke my mom and dad, white as a ghost, and said a man was standing at his window. The man woke him up saying, "Hey boy, are your parents home?" My parents never told any of us that at the time, but the timeline fit with them changing the real big open window fly screen we had to a glass loris with metal anti-break-in bars. If you enjoyed this video, please subscribe, like, and hit the bell for notifications on future videos and become a stalker of the night, and I'll see you next time.